Hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar where we will be coding a custom trading algorithm in Python using FXCM's REST API. This is the first webinar of mine that you've attended. Let me introduce myself. My name is Rob Pache, and I am an in-house developer specializing in algo trading at FXCM. My role at FXCM is to help the trading community create and deploy algorithmic trading strategies, and that's exactly what we're going to be doing today. Before we get too far, however, there are a couple of risk disclaimers that you must read and understand regarding forex and CFD trading. So I'm going to put those up on the screen. Give you a few moments to read through those. And then later on during the webinar, we might get into discussing historical data and back testing, so you should also read our hypothetical performance slide. So understand the limitations of looking at historical data to test a strategy with the benefit of hindsight. Really what it means is just because a strategy works well in the past does not guarantee it will work well into the future. Very good. So today, we're going to start off by pulling up a chart and planning out our trading rules for the strategy that we're going to be coding today. We're going to be coding an RSI trend trading strategy using a moving average as a trend filter. And then once we figure out what we want our strategy to do, we're going to be using a Python strategy template. I'm going to show you how to turn those trading rules into a functioning trading algorithm that trades all those rules completely on its own. And then at the end, I'm going to show you how to turn it on, set it up to run on your account. Now, I'm going to be programming things, line by line in some cases. If I get too far ahead, don't worry. Don't worry about keeping up with me as I go. Everybody in the room today will receive a copy of the strategy that I am coding. I'm going to try to drop it in the actual GoToWebinar handout link, and I think that should send it out to all you guys. So don't worry if you get far behind. It's okay. Everyone will receive a copy that attended. Also, I do like my webinars to be interactive, so make sure that you do type questions into the question box as you have them, because I like to try to answer questions in real time. Now, speaking of questions, I do want to ask you guys a poll question. I want to know, what is your experience level in coding automated trading strategies? Experience level in coding an automated trading strategy. I left off a word on the question. So we got no experience. Looks like about 40% of you no experience. About a third of the room have coding experience, but little automated trading experience. And then about a quarter of you both coding and automated trading experience. Okay. I was kind of curious to see what the room would be. This is the first time that I've done a Python strategy webinar. Most of my webinars I do have been Lua based, using our TradingStation desktop. So I was kind of curious to see what kind of audience we would get for Python. I knew we would have some people with coding experience, but no trading experience or little trading experience. So it's good to know where we're at. All right, let me end that. And let me show my screen. All right, so the first thing we want to do, we actually already have a question in the room. Where do you get your ideas for strategies? Years and years of learning, reading, either books or online, will teach you a lot of different types of trading techniques and how to use different trading indicators, different tools, what their strengths and weaknesses are, and how to combine those to create a viable strategy. So today's strategy, what we're going to be doing, and let me zoom in on this chart. Give me one moment. All right, so today's strategy, we're going to be using the RSI, the Relative Strength Index, along with a simple moving average. The RSI, typically how it's used is we look to trade crosses of these red lines. The RSI is bound between 0 and 100, and you see the RSI values of 30 and 70 are these red lines. And typically what most traders look for when they're trading RSI is they're looking to buy when the RSI crosses above 30. They're looking to sell when it crosses below 70. So if I were going to mark where we would have had buy and sell trades on this chart, we would have had a few sell trades up here whenever it crossed below 70. So it was once above and then went below. And then we'd have some buy signals when it crosses above the 30 line. So each time it crosses from below to above the 30 line, that's where we would be buying. Now, as you can see, there's a lot of signals that are coming through when using the RSI like this. And so what we want to do is turn the RSI into a trend signal strategy by using a simple moving average as our trend filter. Basically meaning we only want to place sell trades when price is below the moving average, and we only want to place buy trades when price is above the moving average. So that's going to filter out all of the counter trend trades. So effectively what we're doing is we're looking to trade signals that are in the direction of the existing trend after we've had a pullback in price. And it's funny because when I was coding this strategy and doing some prep work this morning, I realized that this strategy doesn't place a whole lot of trades. And I was thinking, doing this webinar, it'd be nice to see it place a trade live after we code it. I was thinking that's highly unlikely because it's pretty rare to get a strong trend with a pullback strong enough to trigger an RSI signal. But while I was prepping for the webinar, we actually did have a trading example where it did just that. So this is actually a good example of what this strategy looks to do. So we have a downtrend, price is below the moving average. As price is pulling back, you see that RSI moving higher and higher. We had it cross above the 70 line. Whenever it crossed back below, that's a sell signal in the direction of the trend. So it placed that sell trade, and it's good that you guys read that hypothetical performance slide because not all trades are going to be this clean. But as you see, that pullback nailed it almost right at the top of that this pullback, then came back down and hit our profit target. So it was a pretty nice signal. It looks like we almost had another signal right here where, so price was below the moving average. We had another cross below 70, which would have been a sell trade. So we would have another signal here, maybe one here. But that's how the strategy works, using the RSI signals, using the moving average as a trend filter. Pretty simple, but it's also very logical and kind of makes sense for what we're looking to do when trading a trend and trading pullbacks. All right, so now that we know the rules that we want to code into our strategy, we're going to need to get into the actual meat and potatoes of this webinar. So the first thing we want to do, I'm going to pull up our GitHub because we're not going to be starting with this from scratch. We actually have a live Python strategy template that we can use. So I'm going to put this link inside the chat box. This is where we can download the Python template. And so this is not to be confused with the Python wrapper that we have for FXCM's REST API. Let me actually send you another link. If you've never coded before, this is your first time programming in Python, you haven't set up your computer, we have a very good series on quantnews.com that walks you through the steps of doing it. So this will take you through preparing your computer by downloading Anaconda, installing Python, making sure we get the FXCM wrapper installed properly. and then also takes you through how we develop the strategy template that we're going to be using today. So some of the things I talk about will actually be from this article. And then once we have that all set up, we are ready to start coding our own custom strategy. So I'm going to copy and paste this raw Python template into my text editor. I'm going to use Notepad++ in this webinar. And so this is the template that we're going to be working from. Now there's a few things that are going on, so I'm going to go through this briefly and show you, how this template functions. You don't really need to know exactly line by line how it works. You really just need to know what pieces to work with, where you put your trading logic and your trading rules. But I want to go through anyway. For some of you that have coding experience might be interested to see the nuts and bolts of how this template came to be and how it works. Okay, so at the top of this template, we're going to be importing the different modules that we'll need for the strategy. We can see FXCM PY. That is the module, or the wrapper that's used for FXCM's REST API. We're also going to import time and date time, a couple of common modules in Python that most would be familiar with. The next section, we have our parameters block, and this is going to be where we'll put the options for our strategy that we want to be able to easily change or edit later on. So this would be a section where we would put how many periods do we want our RSI to be set to, or how many periods do we want our moving average to be set to, stop and limit values, trade size, things like that. User parameters will go inside this user parameters block. And then next we have some global variables that we'll be using across multiple functions that we want to make sure we maintain a consistency with that. And this is where we connect to FXCM's API using a call that's from the FXCM PY wrapper. So this first section right here just kind of sets up those initial values that we need. Now we have a few functions. We have the prepare function, strategy heartbeat, get latest price data, all these things programmed for us. Then the update function. And what kicks off this strategy is running the prepare function and then running the strategy heartbeat function. And that's going to be how the strategy starts off. So going back to the prepare function, this is the first thing that's run when we run this template file, the strategy file. It's going to request price data from FXCM server. So it's going to do a get candles call using the FXCM wrapper, and then it's going to print that data inside our terminal to make sure that we're getting the price feed that we expect and that there's no errors in connecting to the REST API service. Now, once the prepare function is run and we have that initial data, the strategy then runs the strategy heartbeat function. Now I'm seeing someone say, please zoom in. It's hard to read. Okay, let me do this. Let me make it a little bit wider. All right, how's that? Is that a little bit better? Perfect. Okay, so after the prepare function is run, we get that initial price data coming through. We then run the strategy heartbeat function. Strategy heartbeat function ensures that we have the latest candle data and also runs the update function every time we have a close of bar or a close of a candle. Now you'll notice that it is an infinite while loop. So endlessly it is looping through this logic that you see here. Now this loop though only takes action whenever a certain amount of time has passed and a candle has actually closed. So you'll notice these else if lines right here. This is going to be based on the time frame that we've selected in our user parameters. So if we are running on a minute time frame, that means that every minute the strategy heartbeat will get the latest price data, and then once that latest price data is confirmed to be new data, we will then run the update function. And it's the same thing for a 5-minute time frame, 15-minute, 30-minute, hourly time frame. Each time we get a close a bar, it's going to get new data, and it's going to run the update function. So if you were going to have to do this yourself, it might be a little bit complicated to figure out what time frame you're using, different sleep functions, different loops to make sure you're staying current. But everything is coded for you on this template, so you don't really have to worry about how this works. You just have to know that it does work. If you're running a 5-minute chart, every 5 minutes you're going to get new data, and the update function is going to be run. And so that brings us to the get latest price data. So that's a run inside the strategy heartbeat function as well. That just makes sure we get the latest data. So based on our time frame, based on our currency pair instrument, it gets the latest price data. And then every time a bar closes, the update function is run. And this is going to be where we put all of our strategy logic. This is where we're going to be spending most of our time today, where we're going to calculate our indicator values, see if it's crossed 30 or 70, see if price is on the correct side of the moving average, and whether we should buy or sell. Now, someone asked, this was Gordon, he says, is a 1-minute chart effective to work with? In my personal trading, I do not use a 1-minute chart. The reason why I like to use a 1-minute chart during my webinars when I'm doing demonstrations is because I want as many bars or as many candles to close as possible, just so we can see how the strategy actually functions. In my own trading strategies, I look at 15-minute and hourly primarily, in case you were curious. But for these webinars, I like the short time frames because I like to see a lot of updates and let the attendees see the the trades as they're coming through. Sebastian says, do you have to change it to use daily data? If you want to use daily data, you would just type in D1 for the time frame. So time frame, you just type in whatever time frame you want. You can see examples of what time frames you can use to the right of that time frame parameter. But for now, we're going to do an M1 time frame. All right, so what I want to do, you'll notice tokens. You have to insert your API token. If you don't have one, you can get one for free, even with a demo account. You just have to log into the web-based trading station on FXCM.com. And up at the top right, there's a settings button, and you can get an API token. I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste mine into this document. This is for a demo account. And we are going to save this file. I'm going to save this file onto the desktop. Okay. So let's call this RSI with SMA trend filter. .py. Right there. Oops, let me do this. Okay, so I went ahead and saved the file, and we're going to run this in Anaconda right now. Because I put in my API token. This is going to connect and update. All right, let's see what we have here. Cannot connect FXCM server. Random order. Okay, that's interesting. Let me make sure I put in the right token. Token is right. All right, there we go. Not sure why we had that hiccup. All right, so there we can see we downloaded our initial price data, printed it in the terminal so we know it's working right. And because we have it set to 1 minute, we should see the update function run every minute. So let's wait for the next minute to cross over. We should see it print bar closed, running the update function, and then it should print the latest closing price. So here it is where I ran the Python script. All right, we just had a bar close, so we can see an M1 bar close running the update function. Here's the most recent close price, and we were trading on the pound dollar. And so last close price on the 1 minute candle was 127.23.5. All right, so everything is working properly. Very good. So after that initial check, we're going to go back to our code. And let's go ahead and get some indicators in here, get some indicator values, and get started with our logic. But before we do that, I think now would be a good time to pause and see if we have any questions. Leandro says, "Hi Rob, I'd like to know what advantages or disadvantages versus Lua that Python has." You're going to be able to do very similar things as far as the strategy goes. Your buy and sell logic and managing your positions. I guess it really depends on what you're more comfortable with. I've only been trading, or I've only been coding using Python for the last, I'd say maybe 4 or 5 months. And I've just now started getting more comfortable with it. But you'll be able to do the same thing with both. I guess if you're already good with Lua, it feels good to you, and you're on the Trading Station desktop, I say stick with it. But I know a lot of the people in the room have Python coding experience, are just getting into trading, and they'd like to be able to apply their Python skills to automated strategies. And so if that's where you're at, then I would say definitely go with Python. You'll be able to do all the same stuff that you can in any other language you could code with. But since you're already familiar with it, that's what you should stick with. All right, so let's go to the top of this Python file. We have a couple more modules that we need to import, specifically for calculating our indicator values. I use something I found on GitHub. It's called PyTi, P-Y-T-I. That stands for Technical Indicators, using Python. I can actually pull that up and link that real quick. So here's the GitHub where I downloaded PyTi. It has a big library of a bunch of different technical indicators. I'll put that in the chat box. And of course, if you want to code your own logic for your indicators, you can do that. You can Google any indicator and see what the formulas are. None of them are a secret. All right, so from that PyTi module, we're going to do the relative strength index. Oops. Relative strength index, and we're going to import the relative strength index as RSI, just to simplify it. And then also from PyTi, we're going to get a simple moving average. And we're going to import that simple moving average as the SMA. All right, so once we have those, user parameters. So this is where we need to put, RSI periods, SMA periods, trade size, stop limit, things like that. So let's go ahead and do RSI periods. Let's do the default 14 SMA periods. Let's do the default as, let's do 200. Now also for RSI, we're looking at that 70 and that 30 level specifically. But let's go ahead and make that an option because maybe later on down the line, we'll want to change it. So rather than just hard coding 70 and 30, let's go ahead and do an upper and a lower RSI value. 70 and 30, then we can change those if we want to later on. And then for the trade size, let's call this amount. I'm going to do 1. For a stop loss, let's do a 10 pip stop, and let's do a 30 pip limit. Okay, so I'm just creating these different user parameters that we would want. And these are going to be things that we might want to change later on. We want to make sure they're in a simple place for us to do. Martin says, what's the benefit of using the strategy heartbeat approach versus fetching the tick data directly from FXCM and then resampling? Yeah, you can subscribe to the tick data and form these candles yourself. That is something that people have done. Then that's perfectly fine. One thing that I've seen in some rare occurrences is that the tick feed might not receive all of the ticks that actually occurred within that time frame. So if we have a period of high volatility where we have 1,000, let's say 1,000 price updates in a second, or something that's very, very fast, we're not going to send 1,000 ticks updated through the WebSocket and send those to all of our clients all at the same time. It is going to be slightly compressed. So because of that, it's possible that the open, high, low, close values that you construct yourself from that tick stream might not be 100% accurate. It'll be very, very close. But in some rare occurrences, if there was a compressed tick that didn't get to you, and that was the highest tick of that bar, then your high tick wouldn't be accurate to what's actually in the system. Now, whenever you pull candle data using the get candles function, that is going to be the open, high, low, and close. So that's going to be all the ticks that occurred during that candle, and will be 100% what it should be. So that's why I use it with the strategy heartbeat, and I just pull the latest close candle as soon as the candle closes, and that ensures I have accurate data. That's a good question. Okay, so now that we have imported PyTie, we have our two indicator logics. We have our different parameters that we need for all of those indicators and our trade sizes, stops, and limits. We're going to go down to the update function and start looking at some strategy. Okay, so it prints the close price for us. The template does, rather, by default. Before we do that, let's go ahead and let's calculate our indicators. Let's calculate our indicators. I'm going to call our RSI indicator, I'm going to call it IRSI. And this is going to end up being a list of all of the RSI values for the last X number of candles. And this is going to be populated using PyTie. So this relative strength index that we imported it as RSI. We're going to do IRSI equals this RSI function that we got from that module. And this RSI module, it requires, or this function requires two different arguments. The first argument is going to be the price stream that we're using to calculate RSI. That price stream is going to be what we have called price data. So we need price data, more specifically the closing bid price of that price data. And then we need to know the second argument, which is the periods we're using to calculate RSI, which we called RSI periods, I believe. Yes, RSI periods. So by default, it will be a 14-period RSI using the closing bid price from our price data. Why do I call it IRSI? Because that's just something I've done from the beginning when I've been coding strategies. Anytime I have an indicator, I always do a lowercase I in front so that all my indicator my indicator logic, when I'm using it in my code, it's easy to identify what's what. So IRSI. For a simple moving average, I'm going to call it ISMA. We're going to call the function from the PyTie module. This will also be using the closing bid price, and it will be using SMA periods. So those are the two arguments required for the SMA function: price data, number of periods. Why do I use the bid? Someone asks. Is there any difference in using the ask? You can use the ask if you'd like. Most people, when they're looking at charts, looking at candlestick data, looking at indicators, by default, it's set to the bid price. I don't know why, but that's just how most platforms, most charting packages come. Bid price is default. If you want to use ask price, that's fine too. If you find that works better for you, that's perfectly fine. Okay, so we calculated the indicators. Next, so we printed the close price as part of the template. Let's go ahead and print price and our indicators. So just to make sure we have these correct. So I'm going to print the close price, and let's print the RSI value, which is going to be IRSI. It's funny because when I first created this template, I was just starting out in Python, and whenever I was trying to call the last piece of data in a list, I was looking at the length of that list and then subtracting 1, because that's what I'm familiar with doing in Lua. But then I realized in Python you can just do -1 and it does the last value in the list, so that's convenient. So yeah, RSI, the most recent value, or the last value in the IRSI list. And then we have the SMA, which is going to be ISMA. So calculate indicators and print those out. And let's save this, and let's run this inside of our terminal. Let me pull this up. Okay, so I'm going to run the file. And what this will do, so it's going to load the initial data and print that. And then the next minute, it should show us not just the close price, but the current RSI and simple moving average values. All right, perfect. So close price, there's the last RSI value that just closed. There's the last SMA value that just closed. Very good. All right, so now we're getting somewhere. Let's go back to the code and let's put in some of our trading logic using those indicators. All right, trading logic. We have let's do our buy logic here. And let me, I'm at the bottom of my monitor. There we go. All right, so our buying logic, it was a long time ago when we talked about it, but we were looking at RSI. So for buy logic, we were looking if RSI crosses above 30, or actually we're going to call it lower RSI. If RSI crosses above lower RSI, and we have the close price is above the SMA, then we buy. That's our buy logic. So let's put that into code. So if RSI crosses I'm actually going to use a custom function that I've written. It's called crosses over. I'm going to copy and paste this in just a second and show it to you. But all we have to do is put in RSI and lower RSI. This will return true if RSI crosses over that lower RSI value. And then the close price, which is price data, bid close. If that price is above the SMA, then we have our buy signal. Now this crosses over function that I put in here, let me copy and paste this over. I have a few utility functions that I use in a lot of my strategies. Crosses over is one of those. What the crosses over does is it looks at either a list of values, two lists, and see if the most recent values crossed over, if one crossed over the second one. But it also allows you to do an integer or a float value as the second argument. So if you have a list that you want to see if it crossed over a static value, you can do that too, which is what we're doing in this case. So if RSI has crossed over the lower RSI value, that will return true. And then if price data is above the simple moving average, that's going to be our buy signal. Now for our sell logic, we're looking for if RSI crosses under the upper RSI and close price is below the SMA, then we sell. And we have a function for this, which I call crosses under. And it's the same thing. RSI, upper RSI. So if RSI crossed under the 70, or the upper RSI value, and price data, let me just copy and paste this, is less than the simple moving average, then we are looking for or we are going to be buying, or selling rather, sell signal. And I just realized, let me put this up on the screen, I had this looking at the wrong window. I apologize, guys. So here's the trading logic that we just coded. So you see highlighted on the screen, that's what I was just programming. I use a special function called crosses over. A custom function called crosses under. So if RSI crosses over lower RSI and price is above the SMA, we buy. If RSI crosses under the upper RSI and price is below the SMA, then we sell. And I copy and pasted the crosses over function. I'm going to copy and paste this over as well, crosses under. And it returns true if it did cross over or cross under, returns false if it did not. Just a quick way to do it. Thank you, Campbell, for mentioning I was on the wrong screen. I'm sure you guys were very confused. All right, so we have that, crosses over, crosses under. So now what's left is to actually trigger a buy or a sell trade. Now we could use the wrapper, and we could the FXCM wrapper and place our trade using that. There's a function, it's called open trade, where you put in different your different arguments, and you're able to place that trade using that. But I like to simplify it by using a custom function called enter. So this enter function that I just paste on into the screen, it uses that open trade function that comes with the FXCM wrapper, but it simplifies it to a point where we only have to say enter with a capital B if we wanted to buy, or enter with a capital S when we want it to sell. And as far as trade size, stop, and limit values go, well, all of those are going to be values that we put inside our user parameters block. So that amount we're trading will come from here. Stop and limit values will come from here as well. And that's all built into that enter function that I just pasted in. So when we want to actually place a buy trade, we just say enter capital B or enter capital S. That would place a buy, that would place a sell. All right, so I'm going to save this. Put that up and running on the screen. And I'm looking at a chart right now. I'm curious to see if we're close to a signal. It doesn't look like we are, at least on the pound dollar. I thought it might be difficult to get a live trade. All right, so there's our updated values. And it looked at our logic, and it showed that there wasn't a crossover or a cross under with the moving average in the same direction. But I'll let this continue to run off to the side. And I'll let you know if that does trigger a trade. How much time do we have left? Got about 15 minutes? Okay, so that's the core logic of the strategy that we've coded. And I wasn't sure how much time we would have, so there's a few other of these utility functions that I liked to put in my strategies. I'm going to put these in here as well before I post this strategy as a handout in this webinar, so you guys will be able to download it. So let me put in the exit function, and then let me put in the count open trades function. And please understand that you do need to use the FXCM wrapper. This template does use the wrapper, but these extra functions that I put in here, it makes the wrapper even more consumable, makes it even easier. So what the exit function does, if you do exit capital B, it will exit all the buy trades. If you do a capital S, it'll exit all the sell trades on that instrument. And then count open trades does exactly what it says. It'll count how many buy trades we have open or how many sell trades we have open. If we leave it empty, it'll count all the trades we have open on that instrument. So let's say, for example, when we place this buy trade, if we had an existing sell trade, so let's say if count open trades, if we had any sell trades, that means if count open trades did not equal 0, then we would want to exit those sell trades. So if we had a buy signal come through and we had any open sell trades, we would want to exit those sell trades. We could do the same thing down here for the sell signals if we had any buy trades. So if count open trades was not 0, we had a trade, it would close out those buy trades. So it would be kind of like a close in reverse. Also, we could use this function. So let's say we only wanted to place one trade at a time. So we could do this. We would only be placing a buy trade if our current count for our buy trades was 0. So only if we have no trades do we actually enter. Not that there's anything against having multiple trades open on a single instrument, but just as an example, I kind of want to show you guys what you can do with these custom functions that I've copy and pasted in here. I find a lot of strategies need to have that type of functionality, knowing what you have open, what to do with it, things like that. All right, let's look at some questions. How would you be able to have the amount change after a trade? Yeah, good question. Well, because the amount is a global variable, we could change that amount inside our update logic. So where's the update function? Here it is. So depending on what you want to happen, you would just have amount be equal to something different than what you had at the top. So right now it's at 1. That's whenever it first starts. Amount equals 1. Well, if you want to increase that every trade, you could just do amount, plus equal 1, and it would increase amount by 1. So next time I place a trade, it would be amount 2. It would place 2 lots. You could also have it look at your closed trades list. You could use the wrapper to make look at your closed trades window, and it would tell you, whether your last trade was a winner or a loser. You could use that information to decide what you want your amount value to be. So whatever type of logic you want to use, if you change the amount variable, it will change it the next time it places a trade. Maybe this is a bit advanced, but how do you include multiple symbols in such a strategy? Good question. Let me look at that. So normally with my strategies, I like to have individual Python scripts running for each one. Let's see. Multiple symbols. I guess if you did symbol 1 and symbol 2, you could then request symbol 1 and symbol 2 here. You'd have two price data. You would need price data 1 and 2. But the easiest way would probably be to make it a list, and make it a list of a list. And then when you get latest price data, you want to make sure you're getting the price data update for each instrument. Make sure that all of them are updated before running update. So yeah, you could do it. You could do it, but it would take a little bit of work. That might be a good project for me to work on. I could have it symbol actually be just a list of symbols. I could put these in a list, and then I can have it pull all the data for all those symbols. That'd be a good project. I could put that on the GitHub. I like that idea. Can you define the trading time so it only trades during market hours? Guy asks. Yes, so you could code to have a start time and an end time every day, so it would only open or close trades during that time window. I actually have an example of that already coded on our GitHub. Let me pull that up. I'll give you a link. Okay, so here's the page for all of our live examples. So live trading examples. And here was an RSI range strategy, where there's a trading time range. Yeah, so you have a start time and an end time. And then inside the update function, it uses a function I coded called isTradingTime. And let's see what that does. Yeah, so isTradingTime. Yeah, it looks at the current time, sees if it's between those two times. Oh, and it also looks to see maybe the start time comes after the end time, because maybe it crosses over through midnight. It also has that functionality too. So there's a good example of that. Let me give you the direct link. Yeah, Prod says, could you loop through a list of instruments? Yeah, you could definitely do that. And I think that's a good project. Probably the next strategy I put on the GitHub will be a multiple instrument strategy where you can put a list of the instruments. Oops. Where you'd put a list of the instruments here for the symbol, and then we would trade all those symbols using those rules. I like that idea. Campbell says, so it would shut down trades or just not start new ones. I believe that strategy, I don't think it closed out the trades when the time ended. Let me see. Yeah, so it could open new trades during the trading time only. When it was outside of trading time, it just wouldn't do anything. That was the logic on that one. All right, let's see what other questions we've got. And what about the stop and limit you define in the parameters? Where do you use them? Yeah, so the amount, the stop, and the limit, those are going to be used in this function that I copy and pasted over called enter. So this just simplifies the buying and selling, and it uses stop, limit, and amount. So it's very important that in the user parameters block that you use these exact variable names, amount, limit, stop, because those are used by that enter function. Guy says, can you make it a trailing stop? Yes, you can. I'm trying to remember what the argument name is. I'd have to look at the FXCM wrapper. Let's see. It's called trailing step. Yeah, so it'd be trailing step equals 1. There's a, yeah. So I was just looking at the, this is the FXCM PY, this is the FXCM wrapper for our REST API. And the variable name for that argument name was trailing step. It needs to be an integer. So 1, this would be a trailing stop whenever it's placed for every trade. You could also do a variable for that, or excuse me, a user parameter for that. Trail. What's it called again? Trailing step. So 1, if you want it to be a trailing stop. If you do this 0, it would be not a trailing stop. There you go. And is the trailing stop adjusted so the stop never gets wider? It only goes in the direction of the trade? Yes. Yep. That is server side. So once that trailing stop is in on the server side, as the trade moves in your favor, that's when the trailing stop moves. If the trade starts moving against you, the stop does not move. It only moves when your trades reach a new high watermark, for lack of a better term. Whenever it gets the trade's better than it's been, that's the only time that it moves in the direction of the trade. All right, let's see if we have any other questions. I think we got to them all. Where can I find the wrapper functions? Good question. Let me send you a link to that. And then after I send you this link, I'm going to put the file that we coded into this webinar, so you'll be able to download it. Here's the documentation for the REST API and the wrapper. Okay, so this is what we coded today. Everything looks good. I'm going to put this into the room. Really? GoToWebinar doesn't allow Python files as a handout. That's frustrating. Let me do this. I will change it to a text file. Let's see if it allows that. Oops. Really? Can't do a text file either? Well, this is an oversight. I saw this feature and I was very excited to be able just to send it right inside the webinar, but it's not letting me send these file types. Okay, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do. My email address, rob@fxcm.com. If you want a copy of today's strategy, just email me. Email me, rob@fxcm.com. rob@fxcm.com. And I'll send that to you in an email. All right, so that brings us to the top of the hour. And I want to thank everybody for attending today's webinar. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned a lot. And remember to email me, rob@fxcm.com, if you want a copy of today's strategy. Also, if you have any further questions related to trading using our API, or if you have strategy-related questions, love to hear those. And then also make sure to check out our GitHub for more example strategies using Python and using REST. I'll be coding that multiple instrument strategy here in the next week or two. So that'll probably be the next project that I have on there. All right, so thanks again, and until next time, good luck with your trades, and have a great day. Bye now.